My interest in fashion started quite stereotypically with the whole fairy tale of fashion, and I wanted to be a star designer. But I found quite quickly that it is the paradox between that fashion and clothing can help you to explore and question your identity, your gender identity, your body, how your body moves in public space. But then simultaneously, fashion as a system, as an industrial system, tells you how your body should be. So this paradox is what has been driving me ever since. So the paradox between freedom and constriction that exists within fashion. I'm Chet Bugter. I'm an embodied and artistic researcher, writer and educator moving within fashion. And right now we are at the floor of Critical Fashion Practices, a master program at ArtEZ where I studied and where I now teach. In the analysis of fashion, the body is often not seen as valuable. While I think you cannot disregard your body when you analyze fashion, because fashion is meant to be worn on the body. So that's why I've developed these embodied research methods that focus on putting into practice what I preach and what I try to say. What I do is I collect either one or a couple of magazines, high-end luxury fashion magazines, and I usually wear one specific garment, so a sort of shapeless long black t-shirt, dress. I take off my glasses and most of my accessories, and I start looking through the fashion magazine. Usually quite intuitively I pick a photo or an image, either an advert or a photo shoot image. And I try to reenact this image as precisely as possible. So I sort of move through the image from my legs to my face, and I try to put my limbs and my body in exactly the same pose as the fashion image. And then I hold this pose for as long as it's possible, usually. Sometimes the poses are quite comfortable, so it's easy. Sometimes they're really quite impossible to do for me, and I fall over, for example, or I tremble, or I stumble, and that's sort of the end of the pose. And then I move on to the next one until I'm over it, essentially, and my body is telling me maybe now it's a good time to stop. Well, I think in that moment of the performance, there's two powers going against each other. So it is the power of the fashion magazine that is telling me how to pose my body and how to move my body and how to position my body. But then at the same time, the body is also taking back some control, because my body is telling me what you are doing right now is not real. The most important goal of the workshop is, of course, to make the participants aware of the influence that these fashion magazines can have, and through the poses to make them more aware of the more far-stretching influences of the fashion magazine and of the fashion industry at large. Because it is not only in the fashion magazine that these poses are put, it is in all forms of fashion media, but also in mannequins, in runway shows. All these bodies are behaving essentially in the same way, and they have been behaving like this for the entire existence of fashion media, or sort of the industrial fashion system. It is really important in these in these workshops that people try to be as aware as possible of what a certain pose does to their body, because then you will really feel what it does to your body, and then you can start making the connections to, okay, this fashion magazine and the fashion system, industrial fashion system at large, is telling me that I need to be in this pose to be fashionable, or to be elegant, or to be feminine, or if you use a more masculine pose, to be masculine.
En je doet je hand zeg maar omhoog. En die gaat iets naar beneden. Ja, zo. En die hand, die gaat zeg maar een beetje zo met één vingertje. Ja.
So it is often said that fashion is sort of the favorite child of capitalism, because it has the same speed as capitalism. It is as quick. There's new fashion almost every couple of days. And right now we are, whether voluntarily or because we just are, we are in a neoliberal capitalist system, and fashion follows that. So it follows the same way of exploitation of natural resources, of people, of labor, of the earth and everybody on it. So I want them to become aware of that, but then also an extra layer of that is how you can use your body as a research tool, and how you can really implement your body and your lived experience and your embodied reactions in forming an opinion on something, or in posing a critique on something. And that when your body tells you something, you should really take that and employ it to what you're trying to say or what you're trying to practice. The whole idea of the fashion show, I think it's the same as with a magazine. It will always exist. I don't necessarily think it should not exist anymore, but I also think, especially for young designers or students, it's good that you rethink why you want to do a fashion show. What is it that you want to tell with this fashion show, and does it really tell what you need your garments to tell? I've made it my practice of trying to love my body more, so I call it selfies as self-love praxis. So I use my body, and I use the act of taking selfies as a way of questioning how my body is perceived by others, and how my body is perceived within the context that I'm moving through and the systems that I'm moving through. So there are often selfies of parts of my body that I'm not necessarily very confident about. So for example, my stretch marks, which are something that is a paradox in my mind always. I don't feel very confident about them, but I also do feel very confident about them, because they are a part of my body, and they show that my body is alive and growing and moving and developing essentially over the years. So in these selfies, I try to sort of put the focus away from not feeling confident, but using them as a metaphor to ask certain questions about the body in our society.